What is up, boys? Good to see everybody's face on another episode of the Blind Pig Podcast, brought to you by bgobsession.com. Get some particulars out of the way. Obviously, if you've been here before, we appreciate you. Stick around, give us a like, a follow, and please absolutely share our podcast. If this is your first time finding your way down here, you can not only find us on however you're listening, one of the many audio platforms we're on, but on YouTube if you want to watch along. Catch us on all socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course you can catch us at our home, bgobsession.com. Free membership, free to sign up, and please come by, hook it up, have some fun. Interesting story, guys. I actually was tailgating next to somebody yesterday at the game who started on CPND and then was on Extreme Skins a little bit, and I introduced him to bgobsession.com. So he said, so we might see a couple new members pop up. He's kind of an old schooler like us. So
cool.
Feel free to join. Like I said, membership's free, and we welcome pretty much everybody. So come by and hang out. Gentlemen, the BGO flag was flying high yesterday at that
Northwest Stadium.
Northwest Stadium for the first time, I guess. And it was awesome. I actually surprisingly have a voice because after about midway through the second quarter, there was not a need to be as extremely loud as we have been in the past. It's something that we're not used to, which is crazy to think about. Did you guys know that had we not given up a touchdown, it would have been our first shutout since 1994?
91.
Okay, 30 years.
Yeah.
Gibbs was the coach the last time Gibbs won
1.0. Yeah.
Gibbs won.
Additionally, I believe in our last two home games we have outscored the opponents 83-17. Is that right?
Yeah.
Am I right?
I got some nuggets too, Derek. I'll just rattle off a couple here.
Do it up.
5-2 for the first time since 2018. 3-0 at home for the first time since 2005. We're 3-1 against NFC opponents. I'll save some of the rest of these. That was the largest first half lead, 27 points, since 2005 versus Dallas. And I'll save some of the other nuggets I got for later on the podcast. But Derek, you were there, man, as you just shared. What was it like? What was the atmosphere like?
Oh, it was absolutely electric. It was back like I had season tickets for 5 years, and I had luckily overlapped the 05 and 07 season.
Okay.
So those, you know what I mean? And the 2 years that Gibbs took us to the playoffs, that was while I had season tickets, so it was really cool. But it was a different feel, man. Like we went last year, the BGO crew did, and kind of crashed the party against Arizona, and there was like a nervous excitement, and we kind of snuck. This was just when Fowler took off running after that interception. Like the crowd was nuts. The crowd knew when to cheer. You know what I mean? You're not looking around. Look, and I'm not a fan of the wave, but the wave went for like 10 rotations during. You know what I mean? So you could tell that there were actually there was a lot of investment in the actual game. Where in years past, you look around and you're like, why do you even come to a game if this is how you're going to act? You know, that vibe was not there yesterday. It was sports fans, for the most part, from what I saw, everything with Panther fans was pretty cordial. I didn't see any issues, but that was just me. It was really cool. A little kid sitting next to me who's a Commanders fan, and then a kid behind me that was a Panther fan. And they were about the same age. They were like 10, and they were just loving every bit of it. Everybody was having fun. We turned around right like before the game started and said, hey, by the way, I hope you understand, we barely ever sit down. It was my uncle and I. And of course the guys are like, oh God, you know what I mean? They kind of, but then as you go through the period, nobody was sitting down. Like people were on their feet everywhere. It wasn't just us two idiots in the middle, you know, everybody was on their feet. So it was awesome to be a part of that.
Certainly, look, it sounded loud on TV, and there weren't a whole lot. It was just a sea of burgundy and gold, from what I could tell. There wasn't a whole lot of Carolina blue showing in the stands.
Yeah.
The other thing I have to say is they knocked it out of the park with the Darryl Green retirement. ceremony. They did a really, really good job. I will have one tweak. The giveaway they did for the game was badass. It was like a hardened acrylic ticket. You know what I mean? It was like it looked like a stadium ticket with his number on it. They're already up on eBay if you want to buy one. We went in at $340, thinking we had enough time, and they were already gone. I had other people that I knew that were walking in at $310, and they had already given them all out.
Oh wow!
Like, come on, you got to be better than that, Harris. Like, I love you, but that's like, you know what I mean? The Panther fans are already selling them on eBay. 2 of them had already sold for $50 a pop. There's 2 more up there for 75. Then it's like, come on, man. Like, that's one thing. You need to have 60,000 of those things. Yeah. Everybody's there. Like that's one. Maybe they'll produce it and you can buy the thing for 25 or $30 on the team shop, which would be really cool because that's something I really want to get my hands on.
All right.
I will say, I don't know about you guys, and you can on TV how it felt on TV. We had no idea in the stadium that Jaden Daniels was hurt until the second drive. We looked up, and I said, "That's number 18. That's not number 5." And my uncle was like, "Holy crap, that is Marcus Mariota. What's he doing?" And I had to look it up online to figure out that he was out with the ribs. Going back and looking at the highlights, I can see he was definitely laboring, but we were not able to see that at field level where we were at. Did you guys like feel it while you were watching the game, or was it a surprise to you guys too?
Yeah, when he took off on that with a 50-yard run and he got tackled from behind, and I think it was the way he came down. It was a really kind of an awkward flip, and I'm assuming that was, the play that he got hurt on. But
it is.
He played a couple more snaps, but
yeah,
on the sidelines, basically they just showed him trying. He was trying to kind of lift his arm to throw, and then you could tell something was not right, and then he slammed the ball into the ground out of frustration because I think he knew he was probably done for the day. But we probably had to look at it.
I thought there was something weird on that play where he took off around the left-hand side and he just ended up like
belly flopping.
He didn't even slide. Yeah,
he belly flopped.
It was like he just crumpled.
Mm-hmm. I
thought there is nothing natural about what just happened right there. Mm-hmm. That is weird. There is something off about.
Well, I don't know if you guys heard today, but they did. They did the X-rays after the game, and then they did, I guess, probably an MRI today. But Quinn came out and said it's a rib injury. it'll be week to week, day to day. But I just get the feeling that if he can go on Sunday, he's going on Sunday. I would be. This is my personal opinion. I think they'll shoot him up, and he'll be out there on Sunday ready to go. And I suspect what he did is you have this cartilage between those ribs, this intercostal cartilage. He probably tore some of that up a little bit, and that can be very painful. It's not really something that's like a danger to him, but. Anyway, I know a lot of people are saying, well, it's we can beat the Bears without him, and we don't want to risk anything by trotting him out there too early. But my thing is, you know what? It's an NFL game, man. We're in the thick of the playoff hunt right now. If there's any chance he can play, you're to me, I'm playing
in the thick of it. We're in the front of it, brother.
You just can't afford to. If he can go, I just don't think it's an NFL mindset that, well, let's just wrap them in bubble wrap for a week or two. I mean, it's every week matters. And so that's just my personal opinion.
Where we were, that run where he kind of got uncomfortable was away from us, and we were row 7. So we were low enough. We couldn't really see like through the players, you know what I mean? At the field level. And I guess we didn't catch it on the replay, but yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Tony.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, if he's cleared, I feel like, he'll definitely push to play, and I think he'll go. But then on the other hand, I think now that we have a professional outfit, if there's any, misgivings or reluctance, they're not going to push him to start, unlike in years past.
I want to ask you guys a question, especially Bob. I'll point to you first. Some of us were having a debate this morning about, well, I guess let me put it this way. The premise that was being put forward by some other members was that Kingsbury should never have called a design quarterback run to start the game, and that they're putting Jaden at risk. And I did not view it that way. But what do you guys think about that argument that like Kingsbury's being irresponsible by letting Jaden run the ball?
No, I'll tell you, and this is probably why you singled me out, but I will drop exactly the same comment here that I dropped on the board. So for you guys that are curious, you want a preview of the pod, come to the board. You'll get a preview of the pod on Monday because we all put our schmack there, and then we come up here and refine it a little bit. But anyway, my thought about it on the board, and I still believe this, is he is a legitimate dual threat quarterback. He may be the most legitimate dual threat quarterback since LeVar came out of college. Although I will say that he's the opposite of LeVar. Lamar came out of college and he was a runner first and a passer second. He's really come into his own as a passer in the last year and a half. Jaden Daniels is a passer first, but you cannot ignore the threat that he is running the football. That is part of what keeps defenses honest. That is part of what keeps defensive coordinators awake the week before they have to play us, is trying to figure out how to defend him. And this is a league that figures out trends very, very quickly. And if we stop calling designed runs, they will stop defending for designed runs. And we will start to see the defense shift and cover things that currently are open for Jaden with his arm that wouldn't be open if they didn't have to worry about his legs. So no, I'm not. Cliff Kingsbury is calling the game he needs to call, and I love the fact that game plan didn't, at least to my unprofessional, inexperienced, never been an offensive coordinator at any level. I don't believe the plan changed at all when Marcus Mariota came in the game. And I don't think they will draw up two game plans for this next weekend either. I think it will be one game plan, and both guys will be expected to execute.
And how smart was it for them to bring? I know none of us were like jumping for joy when they brought Mariota in, but in retrospect, how savvy is it to bring in a guy that can basically run it? He may not be Jaden Daniels, but he can run. He's
same style, kind of
not the same kind of a game in general. I think that was really smart of them.
To your point, John, no, they absolutely should not change the way the offense is running, because guess what? It's hard to score points in the NFL. We're leading the NFL in scoring right now. When we're in the first year of a rookie contract, of a rookie quarterback, of a new offense, everything should mean that we should have difficulty being this effective, and we aren't. So what they're doing is effective, and it's working. The Jaden Daniels run, there's two things that I think can be talked about. One of which Dan Quinn kind of mentioned to it. He said that this happened more on like what would have been yes, it was a designed run, but the majority of the time on a designed run, he doesn't break free and isn't able to go north and south for 45 yards. He's taking what he can get. The defense broke down. So this kind of was more along the lines of what he would have done if he had been broken the pocket on a scramble. Here's what I also have to say to all the other people. Guess what? People get hurt all the time. Deshaun Watson is out with his ruptured Achilles. He's done for the season. Brandon Ayuk just blew his knee out. Unfortunately, this is the type of the game that this is. That there's going to be injuries. And no, I don't want to set him up for unnecessary hits. But as far as what I say is necessary, is this team is dominating teams. We're in first place for a reason. And a big reason of that is the offense that we run. Changing it now would be bad. The second thing that I want to point out, sorry, if you dissect that play, if you watch him, and I'm literally watching it so I can get my yardage markers right as I'm explaining this. When he breaks free at the 20, if he stays outside, he has at least 25 to 30 more yards, and he might beat the corner to the sideline, and he might take it the whole way. I think when he cuts back at the 25, 24-ish is what created the problem, because he didn't think that the backside corner was going to catch him. That's where I would go into film study with him and not change the play call, but say, Jaden, the sideline's your friend, brother. That is a defender that cannot hurt you. So when you break free, you want to think outside, outside, outside. Do not live between the hatches. That's when you're going to get blindsided.
They asked Quinn about that in the press conference today, and Quinn said he didn't expect to be that far downfield. Nobody expected him to be that far downfield. He said he had eyes for one thing and one thing only, and that was the end zone. And he said that's what you want your guys to go for.
And you're not wrong. And I agree.
That 46-yarder was the longest quarterback run since 2012 by guess who?
Oh, RG3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, so, I also had no problems with that call because it worked. He almost scored. It ended weird for the reasons we said. And then also from everything I've seen from Jaden, he's got an intense work ethic. He gets better every game. So if there's any tweaks or nuances he needs to learn, like, if you have a breakaway like that, maybe error on the side of the sideline, then yeah, I think he'll learn from it. And then another thing, like when Dan Quinn started, he said for each player, they want to find out what their superpower is and play to that. One of Jaden's is running when he needs to. So I don't have any issues with the way Cliff's calling games. I mean, obviously we've thrown up 40 points. And I'm not overly concerned about his style of play or anything. And Jaden's going to learn.
So all of that said, and you kind of alluded to this, John, is it what's more surprising, how good we are, or the fact that now all the people that say that it's only Jaden can shut up and give Cliff Kingsbury a little bit of his flowers? Because are the Panthers a bad team? Sure. Were we expected to be similar to the Panthers at the end of the season when we came into the season? Absolutely. And we just hung a 40 burger with our backup quarterback.
Yeah.
For the second time in as many home games, we're resting our starters in the fourth quarter. Okay, like there's something.
I don't know if you guys thought this, Derek, but I was watching it and I thought, last week we were bitching because, basically in the fourth quarter there wasn't anything to, it was over, and now we backed it all the way up to now we got to be semi-bored for an entire half. But anyway, I don't think we're going to have a lot of those kinds of games, but it was a lot of fun, man. And I also wanted to point out one other thing, just on an off-topic statistical vantage point. Siebert has scored 73 points already in 2024, which ties Mark Mosley for the most points in franchise history through 7 weeks.
That's franchise crazy.
That was probably Mosley's MVP season too, wasn't it?
Probably, yeah, I'm sure. So that's crazy.
Yeah, that was a great find.
Additionally, when was the last time? Oh, sorry, my brain went sideways. Ben, your boy Sinnott entered the chat, right?
Yeah,
that was a hell of a play. He got his Ertz, everybody, and they're spreading the ball around, which is awesome. You know what I mean? Mariota started a little squirrely. I think he started 0-3. And then I heard somebody say he ended up finishing 18 of the final 20. So he ended up at 18 of 23 for 205 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think he had 132. Like, what? It's Marcus Mariota. We were all like thinking that if Mariota ever has to enter a game, then we're going to be in trouble. You know what I mean? And do we go to Driscoll instead of Mariota because of how good he looked in the preseason? But I was amazed by the offense and how efficient and how good they looked.
I got to tell you, I was terrified even after the first drive Mariota was in there because he did not look good. He wasn't hitting guys.
Yeah, he started rough. But
it was very rough. And I thought, oh, man, here we go again. And then suddenly he found his stride, his jive, his whatever, man, and his mojo. And the dude looked as good as he's ever looked in an NFL uniform.
So with the caveat, like Derek said, that the Panthers are, and I said it last week, I beat on that drum last week, that Tepper is a disaster. The team they're just a train wreck right now. But as bad as they were, I still think the defense just continues to look better and better. And I looked up today on Pro Football Reference. We were, I think like 4 weeks ago, we were like dead last in the league in terms of giving up yards. We're in the top half of the league now. We're like 16th, 14th, depending on what you're looking at, points, yards given up, etc. So we've already cut our rankings statistically in half, and we're at least in the top half of the league, barely, but we're in the top half of the league. And that's pretty incredible considering how we looked early on in the season. So I just wanted to rattle off a couple things from the Panthers games. We held the Panthers to 10 first downs, only 180 total net yards of offense. We had 26 first downs by comparison. Let's see. We held Panthers to 0 first half points, obviously, which is pretty impressive. I wish we could have held them for 0 for the whole game. And let's see. Remember last week we were worried about Chuba Hubbard being the guy to gash us. Well, we held him to 52 yards and 3.1 yards per carry. We held Andy Dalton's a pretty good quarterback. We held him to 93 yards and had 2 picks. So that is a hell of a job by the defense. I mean, Emmanuel Forbes, and I will admit it on the air, probably 30 seconds before he picked that pass off, I said Emmanuel Forbes is a bust. That was my tag. Emmanuel Forbes gave me the big FU, buddy.
He did.
He didn't stop there.
John,
He said he's a bust 100%.
I did.
John doubled down on it.
I did, and I'm not saying that we won't go there today. We'll give the young man his credit. That was a really good play.
Yeah, as bad as the Panthers' record is, once Dalton took over, their offense has at least been mid-lane, and they've been in games, at least in the first half. But our defense shut them out. Hubbard didn't do anything. Their wide receivers didn't do anything. So it was good to see. And then I noticed Sandstrom had like a number of open field tackles. He really stood out to me.
He's a dog, man. That kid is a dog. That's like he's something different. He flies.
Yeah.
John, you're going to be at the game on this weekend, right?
Yep. Marcus and I will be there.
I challenge you when we're on defense to try to follow Zero. You're going to be impressed, man. Like watching him live, it's a different speed, and it's just so decisive and so powerful when he moves. It's awesome.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing him.
I was watching stuff. When was I watching stuff? I put sports things on YouTube and I just let it run while I'm like working in my office and stuff. And one of the team videos came up, and it was the video that includes the interview with Dan Quinn during the week that they post on YouTube. And Quinn said something that really resonated with me. He said, they asked him about comparing with, other teams and, how he goes, look, there's always a certain amount of looking around the rest of the league and how are you doing? He said, but we're not at that point. That's not really what we look at. He said, what we want to be is a better team than we were 3 weeks ago. He said, we look at each other and go, would this football team beat that football team from 3 weeks ago? Would it kick that football team's ass? And the answer needs to be yes, every single weekend. Every single weekend, we need to be the best version of ourselves this season. And I was like, hear coaches talk quite like that on, and you can see that difference, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Those guys are getting better every weekend. They're communicating better every weekend. Jeremy Chin, flat pissed when one of the reporters mentioned to him that this would have been the first shutout since 1991 if they could have hung on to it. He didn't know. He had no idea. But he was mad about the fact that we gave up 7. He said we shouldn't have given up 7. That shouldn't have happened. He said they should be leaving here with nothing.
Quinn, it's easy to see why players and folks around the league talk so glowingly about Dan Quinn, man. Because the guy I don't know how you could be any more sincere. I think he's just one of those straight shooters, and I don't know, man. I think we might have gotten. I remember we all wanted the guy from Baltimore, right? Oh, we were crushed that we didn't get the guy from Baltimore, and he may prove to be a great coach in Seattle. I think that's where he landed right. But
Mhm.
I think it might have been one of those things. Be careful what you wish for. And, Quinn may be the hidden gem that none of us saw coming before all is said and done.
Oh yeah,
I've had the thought more than once this year. I just haven't said it here yet, but I'll say it tonight. Every week, I think Dan Quinn puts just a little more truth to what everybody said back in February when the team said Dan Quinn was always high on our list. Dan Quinn was very much in the running. Dan Quinn was the first choice. I mean, they made no bones about it. And most reporters, national and local, felt like there was a little bit of trying to save face with the Ben Johnson thing and losing out on, I don't remember the guy's name that went to Seattle. That's how unimportant he's become in my world.
McDonald.
Yeah,
those guys.
and I feel like every week Dan Quinn proves just a little bit more that Adam Peters might be smarter than the rest of the league.
Yeah, and then also I think all the young hotshot coaches, they don't have the experience or the connections to assemble the staff that Dan Quinn did, like on both sides of the ball, not just the coordinators, all the position coaches too are pretty deep.
Yeah, and I don't think. Look, we were a 4-win team last year, right? 4-win.
Yes,
it would be enough of a difficult task for a coach to be able to walk in here with the majority of the same roster and get them to buy in. But he literally brought in they brought in an entirely new roster, and he's got them playing as cohesively and gelling that the way they have. I don't think we can give him enough credit for that. And I think there's a lot of that with Peters. They were talking about Fowler today. How much of that was Peters, and they were talking about Peters with another steal of the offseason. And I'm thinking, how much of that's Dan Quinn, right? Like, Fowler's a guy who's literally followed him everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he played for him in college. He got drafted. When he left his original team, he went to where Dan Quinn was. When Dan Quinn left, he went. Fowler's played for that guy for basically his entire career. So you bring a guy like that, So that's the kind of intangible. There's no way to gauge that, But he's the guy that had arguably the biggest defensive play of our season. You know what I mean? And from that minute, Carolina was out of the game.
You're talking about coaches, man. I think the other thing that hasn't been talked about enough is we not only got Dan Quinn, but we pretty much devastated the Dallas defensive coaching staff. They're like a shell of what they were a year ago. The players haven't changed, but something has changed, and I think we're seeing what that was, which is all the coaches that we brought over. We've just kind of. Not only did we boost our own unit up, but we really put a hurting on a
division rival.
On a division rival that everyone has been saying for the last 4 years should win the division. And now they're in third place looking up at Philadelphia and us. So
just to be fair about that, though, they did lose some guys. I mean, they lost Armstrong and they lost Fowler to us. They lost a couple other people. Jerry didn't see. He brought in one linebacker and the guy's on the wrong side of 30. Now he's playing really well, but the Cowboys, all the Cowboys did this offseason was lose.
Yeah.
That's really all they did because they didn't have the money to be players because they had to try and figure out how to sign Dak, who's a guy that nobody would want at this point in time because they're looking at what guys
and CeeDee Lamb.
Almost any team in the league would like to have some of them CeeDee Lamb stuff, and they got Parsons to pay yet too, and they're thinking about that down the road. So, Jerry did what Jerry thought was best from a business perspective, but he probably didn't help himself out too much on the defense because, now, to be fair, Overshawn's playing really well, and he was a rookie last year who was lost for the season, who may have been mentioned on the BGO
A couple times.
draft podcast. Yeah. But so they but yeah, losing the coaching down here. I don't hear any Dallas fans talk about it, but Mike Zimmer's not exciting anybody at the moment. I'll tell you that.
Well, and don't sleep on Joe Witt Jr.
Yep.
Not only, like, to John's point, not only did we take their defensive coordinator, we took their premium candidate to replace him.
Yeah.
So they probably would have preferred to keep Joe Witt and make Joe Witt the DC. So how much of that now
that was the reported plan.
How much of that has had an effect of hurting them? And look, again, our defense has been playing a lot better. Our defense looked really good yesterday, again against a bad team. But the defense that was a liability in week 1 was a massive question mark in week 2. Was a real concern in week 3 when we had to play a shootout game against a better team, and we ended up winning, right? Has now put together 2 pretty decent performances, okay?
And we're forcing turnovers, which is something I'm really going to be interested this next weekend to see if we can continue that. Because the last couple games, man, we've been forcing fumbles. We've been taking the ball away on passing downs. And if we can keep doing that, we're going to be scary.
Say what you want to say about Baltimore, and we've talked about it. Those guys are going to get theirs on some level. I don't think it's fair to expect us to be able to hang with them yet. But if we're playing the teams that we should be blowing out, like Cleveland and Carolina, and we're doing that, and the defense is – look, I went through the stats, and I thought it was crazy. We scored 40 points yesterday. We did not have a 300-yard passer. We did not have a 100-yard rusher. We did not have a 100-yard receiver. Like, I thought it was really, really weird because I'm looking at the stats, and I'm like, where did it all come from? So when you can do that and you can defensively still hold a team to 7 points and your offense just has to be pretty good to put up 40 points, that's a massive, massive, massive way to be the sustainable success beyond just flash in the pan.
But, I think you can make an argument that we didn't look too bad against Baltimore either.
No, we didn't.
I mean, we had a chance to win the game on the last drive.
Right? Yeah. We had an absolute chance to win the game. The only team that's looked good defensively against Baltimore all season long is Buffalo. That's it. Everybody else has given up points. As many, or in some cases, more than we did. So I'm not upset about the Baltimore game either. And Joe Witt Jr. maintains that we were like 4 bad plays, 4 plays where we did not communicate as a defense away from, in his estimation, winning that game. Now, I know coaches are, paid to put a pretty face on things sometimes, but he struck me as a pretty straight shooter from the beginning. I don't think he's going to sit down at the table and blow smoke at anybody. He strikes me as the kind of guy that would sit down at the table and go, we sucked. If we sucked, right? He sat down at the table this last week and went, 4 bad plays that we didn't talk to each other. 4 bad plays. We cleaned that communication up, and he said, I think we win this football game.
Yeah. And then I think another good sign is like the two teams we played that legit suck, Cleveland and Carolina, we blew the doors off them. That's what a good team is supposed to do, and not let them hang around. Like Cleveland gave Philly a good
By the way, I predicted was going to happen, just to make sure that doesn't go unnoticed. I think I called it 45-14. It was actually worse than that. So
I got you.
Let's talk about the Bears, man. The Bears.
I got them.
Team. You got them
right there. I got you, brother.
Well, Blind Squirrel. We can change the name of the podcast to Blind Squirrel Finds Egg. So the Bears are in a crazy situation, man. They are 4-2 and last in the NFC North. That to me is kind of crazy. That doesn't happen very often. So I only bring that up because this is a big game for them. It's a big game not only because they got to keep winning to have any chance in the NFC North, and I think Caleb Williams. I suspect that it doesn't sit well with him that Jaden Daniels is the rookie darling of the NFL and has gotten pretty much all of the attention through the first half of the season, not Caleb Williams. And I'm sure that's not something that he is used to or anticipated. So I think this game is going to be big for both of those guys. They've got a third-year head coach, Matt Eberflus. Both of their coordinators are first-year coordinators, not first year in Chicago. They both had experience elsewhere, but brand new coordinators on both sides of the ball. And as far as their stats go, I won't go too deep into it, but their offensive stats are not very impressive. Really, they're 24th in yards overall. On passing, they're 20th in yards, 9th in touchdowns. And for rushing offense, they're 24th in yards, 10th in touchdowns. And you'll see later on, the weird thing about the Bears is they don't get to the red zone very often. But when they do, they are scoring 70% of the time in the red zone. We're scoring 56% of the time in the red zone. And we're one of the best offenses in the league. So they don't get down there very often, but when they do, they score.
They convert, yeah.
Yep. And then on defense, they're a much better defensive team right now than they are offense. They're 4th in points, 6th in yards, and their passing defense is better than their rushing defense. They're a little bit kind of middle of the road on rushing D, but their passing defense is excellent. So anyway, that's them in a nutshell.
This is going to be the best defensive team we've played all season, and it's not just because they quote unquote haven't played anybody. They played Stroud and Houston in week 2, and they played the Rams. And granted, the Rams aren't doing great, but Stafford, and they still have a receiving core. I don't know.
They do have a receiving core. That's my biggest concern is that receiving core. With Justin Fields last year, did what we just did to Carolina. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so that we can't have revisionist history that they have some explosive playmakers. I think the biggest thing is going to be which Caleb Williams shows up. Is it the guy that's going to be who played against Jacksonville, who's a very, very, very bad defense? That team, by the way, just has Trevor Lawrence, and they might be picking number 1 overall this year. Or is it going to be the guy that has struggled? I think we need to pressure him, and I think we need to not let this past week of our secondary cloud our thought process that we can just let them eat, because I don't think it's going to be good if we try to go man up. We got to get some pressure. We got to beat him up a little bit.
So I made this point when we were getting ready to play Arizona, that people aren't talking about the fact that Cliff Kingsbury knows everything there is to know about Kyler Murray, and it showed in that game because he was not able to Kyler Murray on us. And I'm going to say the same thing about Caleb Williams. Is if there's a guy that knows Caleb Williams, it's Cliff Kingsbury, and I guarantee you, he and Joe Witt are going to have a lot of meaningful conversations this week about what are this guy's flaws and weaknesses that we can take advantage of.
Yeah, right. One guy in our locker room that's probably having nightmares about this coming football game is Forbes, because DJ Moore turned him inside out, upside down last year. And here comes DJ Moore again. You got to think Joe Witt. The Bears are going to want to try and get Witt or try and get Moore on Forbes early, often, and as much as possible. So they're going to have to figure out a way to avoid that matchup. I don't know whether that's sitting Forbes like they did 2 weeks ago.
Or they might be doing pushing the safeties out like they did. I can't remember if it was the Arizona game, but one of those games, it was like we didn't have any safeties in the middle. They were out there double teaming with the cornerbacks, and we left the linebackers in the middle to take care of anything up the middle. But I don't know how they're going to handle it.
Yeah.
I think though it will be strategic. I don't like the statement I made. I don't think they're just going to trot them out there and say, "Okay, Manny, go cover DJ Moore 1-on-1." I think we're in a different circumstance than we were with Del Rio and Rivera and stuff, that they're not just going to expect us to figure out a way to be successful. Because especially if you have questions about whether or not our star rookie, look, again, Mariota's effort was fantastic, but we would all be crazy to sit here and think he's going to be able to do that every single week, especially against a better defense. So we're going to have to kind of make this a dogfight, I think, as odd as that sounds. And we're going to have to try to maybe win this thing 23 to 17 or something. Try to limit the possessions and try and control things, because they do have explosive weapons, unlike Carolina.
Speaking of that, everybody catch the news that Brandon Coleman's in concussion protocol?
I did. I got the note right there. I was going to mention
it won't be a 50-50 split over there at left tackle, so that Cornelius Lucas gets a blow every other series. The old man is going to have to play the whole game. And
he's going to be blocking?
Is Sweat playing on the right end? Is he not the left end?
Oh, he might be left end.
He played left end for us. I just assumed he was lining up on the left in Chicago.
Well, the competition's going to be better. That's all I got to say. It's going to be a different fight.
Yeah, I think whether Jaden plays or Mariota, I think we're gonna rely on the run game a lot for this game.
That's the only
effort to play keep away.
Chicago either. DeAndre
One thing
Carter.
to point out about the Bears is they have not won on the road this year. They're 0-2 on the road. All their wins have come at home and against they beat the Rams, but the other wins they had were against the Titans, the Panthers, and the Jags. So it's true.
Which are probably the three worst teams in the league right now.
Yeah.
Right.
And the Rams.
I'm not saying they won't be tough, don't get me wrong, but I'm surprised. I'm really shocked that we're a home dog in this game. And I'm thinking that has to be because the betting Vegas thinks that Jaden's not going to play. I think he will play.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
It's got to be. It's got to be.
There's no reason we should be a home dog.
No, I agree with that. There's absolutely. It's got to be because of the question mark with Jaden, and which is odd because if you listen to Dan Quinn, he sounded confident that Jaden's going to be able to give it a go. Now, Chicago's coming off a bye too.
Yeah, that's true too.
They didn't have a game this last week, so they've had a week to rest.
For all the Bears fans that bellyache about how Jaden Daniels keeps winning Rookie of the Week, I think it's hilarious that the week he can't win it.
Caleb Williams didn't play. Yeah,
Caleb Williams didn't play.
Hey, that's a good point though. I will say, I think last week Caleb deserved it. I mean, he threw 4 touchdowns. Yes, against the Jaguars, but he balled out. So I can kind of feel their gripe a little bit there. But
one good thing I think for us is that they do not run the ball very well. They've had only one game with more than 150 yards. We've had 4 games with over 200 yards rushing. They're not a good rushing team, and I think that's good because I think that means they're going to put a lot of it in Caleb's hands, and I think we could take advantage of that.
And they don't have much of a rush defense, right? Didn't you say they were kind of mediocre against the run defense?
They're 11th. I mean, they have a good defense overall, but they're 11th in yards, 16th in touchdowns scored. So of the 2, they're more vulnerable to the run. And it might be a good game for us to say, you know what? We're going to play Jaden, but we're not going to ask him to throw it 30 times a game. Yeah, exactly. I wanted to throw a stat up to you guys that blows my mind. Guess which player on the Commanders has a 94% reception rate?
De'Ami Brown.
No.
Eckler.
Austin Eckler. He's like 17 for 18, something like that. And I know he's catching a lot of balls coming out of the backfield, but that's incredible to me, man. That guy. So I think it could be Austin Eckler time all day long.
It should be Austin Eckler time all day long. That guy's a beast.
He's so explosive.
And what's awesome though, and I have to love again a little quirk of this offense. is if you look at it, Jeremy McNichols over the last 2 or 3 weeks is as he is getting as much work as Robinson and Eckler, and he is more. I don't want to say more productive, but he is very effective in those. He's averaging like 6 yards a carry.
Yeah, they don't miss anything when he comes in.
And he is touching the ball as many times as B-Rob is.
6.6 yards per carry.
Yeah.
He's got the highest yards per carry average on the team.
Other than Jaden.
No. Jaden's
you know why? Because they consider sacks a rush.
Yep. So Jaden's averaging 5.6. Austin Eckler's averaging 5.9. Jeremy Nichols is averaging 6.6. And B-Rob, who's carried more than anybody, is averaging 4.7.
But if you look over the last 3 weeks, McNichols is touching it as frequently as Eckler and as B-Rob, other than when obviously B-Rob was out. So I think that's another little tweak to this offense that you look at it and you say, okay, Eckler's not going to have to touch the ball 200 times. He's only got to touch it, for the season. He's only got to touch it 6 times a game. But every time he touches the ball, he's explosive. You know what I mean? It's different. And then McNichols also had a hell of a coverage on the special teams. If I'm not mistaken, he was a part of the tackle this past weekend where Jeremy Reeves actually forced the fumble too. So I'd like to see it.
Brings the violence every play.
Every time. They do. And they have totally bought in. It's great. But all right, fellas, do we want to get to the predictions? How are we feeling about the here? You know what? I'll tee it off with Paul first. I'll read Paul's. Brother Paul couldn't be a part of tonight, so we'll let him start things. So his prediction, he says Chicago is a +6 in turnover differential this season, and it's 4th overall league wide in that category. They have an impressive 7 interceptions and 6 fumble recoveries. They have a unique ability to create turnovers, which has largely put them in position that they are to be at 4-2. The good news is that Washington protects the ball very well with only 3 giveaways on the season. There's a nugget. When was the last time we had only had 3 turnovers through 7 games? Knock on wood.
Yeah. If
we can play responsible football offensively, then make Caleb feel uncomfortable to force him into some mistakes, we have a chance. Sunday, I don't like that we have a chance, Brother Paul. I love you. I don't want to say we have a chance. We have as good a chance as anybody, but whatever. Sunday will come down to the turnover battle and special teams. Cairo Santos is 8 of 10 on the year in field goals, and Austin Siebert is 19 of 20. Did he miss one?
I think the Ravens block it.
Against Tampa. No, not Tampa.
He has missed one over 50 yards.
Against Baltimore?
I think it was Baltimore, wasn't it?
Oh, it was.
With its only miss being blocked. Okay, I should have kept reading. Shut up, Derek. If Jaden Daniels plays, we win by a field goal. But I think they will be cautious and responsible with him. I'm predicting he misses Sunday's game in Mariota in a lineup. The Bears win 26-23.
Oh, boo.
Oh, I should have said no. That's why we lead off with Paul. I do think the Brandon Coleman thing is going to have an effect.
So I think Jaden's going to play. I think they will just not ask him to do as much as they might normally do, including not a ton of passing. I think it's going to be a pound it down Chicago's throat kind of a day because I think they're more vulnerable to the run, as we talked about when we were looking at statistics. And I think they're going to want to run ball control. They're going to want to grind the clock. Caleb Williams and those wide receivers can't hurt you if they're on the sidelines watching 5 and 7 minute drives. So I think that's going to be the game plan. And I am optimistic, man. I'm done betting against Washington in 2024. I think they're going to win 34-24, and it won't be as close as the score sounds. They'll be like maybe 10 points will be in garbage time. And I think Christian McCaffrey,
Luke
McCaffrey. Luke McCaffrey. I don't know what Christian McCaffrey is going to do, but I think Luke McCaffrey is finally going to get, he's going to get some points this week for us.
Wow, and not get stuffed at the 2 or tripped down.
Yeah, he's the leader. He's the leader in the clubhouse of getting tackled at the 1.
Yeah.
Anyway, 34-14.
He didn't even have a target this week.
I said team, 34-24.
Yeah, 30. I wrote 34-24.
Okay.
McCaffrey went into the game with 11 targets. He came out of the game with 11 targets.
Wow. Interesting.
That's because Senate caught his 2 balls.
And Ertz with the touchdown too. Yeah. All right, Tony, what do you got, brother?
All right. Yeah, for this game, I think we're gonna try to do the keep away thing to keep all those weapons, including Odunze, who they just drafted, and Komet, who's a good tight end, off the field. I'm gonna go 27-20. I think our run game has a good game, and I also think we get like at least one big return. And then lastly, I think John hit on something in that Cliff understands what makes Caleb uncomfortable, and I think we'll use some of that to our advantage and having an aggressive game plan on defense. So hopefully we can force a mistake or two from Caleb.
All right, I think I'm going to keep riding the hot hand. I think Chicago's coming in here off of their bye. We are completely amped up. I think our defense is playing better over the last 3 weeks than they were over the first 4. I don't know that I think Jaden Daniels is the X factor in this game. I think he can be a factor, but not the X factor. I don't think if he doesn't play, I don't think that's the difference between us winning and losing. I think it's a lot deeper than that, and I think it's the defense. I think a bad defensive effort could lose it with Jaden in the game or without. I think if the defense plays well, then the Mariota's enough to win, or at least Kingsbury with Mariota. So I'm going to go Washington. I didn't look at the line, but I'm going to go Washington. I think it's kind of an ugly game. 20-26, Chicago 19, touchdown victory, and a weird, like they go for 2 or something funky at some point in the fourth quarter to try to pull within 1 score or something strange. Bob, what you got, bro?
Washington 24-14.
All right.
I think we're going to see a lot of Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, and Jeremy Nichols this week. And I think that when Jaden throws, it's money. Or Marcus, for that matter. I don't think we're going to throw the ball a lot. I'd be surprised if we have 25 pass attempts. I think this is like which early game was it that Jaden went 21 of 23 or something? I can totally see
was that the Giants?
Giants,
maybe. I can totally see a stat line like that where whoever's under center is like 20 of 24, 19 of 24, because we spend the entire game. And I have a name for this offense. There's been, I don't know if you guys have followed this thing on Twitter, but Twitterverse is like, we got to come up with a name for the Washington offense. We got to figure out, what are we going to call this? And there are a whole bunch of people on the, we're going to call this the East Coast offense. Now, this is the hurry up and wait offense.
Hurry up and wait offense. All right.
Because these guys play hurry up ball right up until they get to the point of snapping the football. And this week, I think we will see them play the full extent of the play clock. I think they will continue to do that. Hurry up, call plays at the line, and get down to 2-3 seconds on the play clock, because they're trying to shorten this game up. And like John said, the best defense against a hot quarterback and great receivers is making them stand around the sideline and cool their jets. Mm-hmm. I think there is another factor at play here, and that is I don't think Caleb Williams is playing in the same maturity pool that Jaden Daniels is. And if we're right and all the hype around Daniels is getting to this kid, he's going to force some things. And if he forces some things, this could potentially get out of hand, not because of our offense, but because potentially defense. I mean, I can totally see us potentially scoring on defense if Williams gets rattled and starts trying to push things. And I think that's a real possibility, because I think he's going to want to show the world that he was number one for a reason, and this kid everybody's talking about isn't the bomb. So just, now I'll take my psychologist hat off.
Little update that just came across not that long ago today. Apparently, Marquez Valdez-Scantling signed with the Saints, but we had inquired, so just a little nugget. Now what level I don't know, but we had apparently inquired with his people or his agent to see what his availability was, and he ultimately signed with the Saints because they just lost Rashid Shaheed there, so he goes in there, probably going to be the number 1 or 1A, which is probably why he ended up choosing that, but I don't know. Again, we might have said will he take vet minimum, and he told us to go pound sand or something. I will say it is interesting that I think that is something to kind of note if we're going to look at our timeline, because now, guys, coming into the season, I was like 2024 is about Jaden Daniels, development of Jaden Daniels. Guess what? He's fucking developed. Okay, so now it starts. Let's start to take another idea here, and I'm not saying I want to do anything to his detriment, but I think he's a lot further on than I thought he would have been. So now do we really start to look at something and become buyers over the next month when we're looking at a serious, playoff push?
I said on the board today, look, and this is, again, I know we're fans. Somebody said, you can't look ahead like that. I'm like, I'm a fan, man. I'm absolutely looking
do whatever
ahead.
the hell you want to do.
Right, yeah.
I don't want the team looking ahead, but I'm sure it's all going to look at it.
Exactly.
If we were to win the next 2 games, the Bears and the Giants game, and then split the next 4, and that takes us up to the bye week, we're 9-4 at the bye. And at that point, the whole thing about, this is a developmental season, F that, man. And then you're talking about, look, we're going to the playoffs, and we're going to win games in the playoffs. So I think, depending on how they're really feeling, that Adam Peters, it could have changed the mindset of like banking all those draft picks and waiting. There may be somebody that they may take a swing at if they think that we could make noise this year.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a kind of the point is now I would have said absolutely you do not look at future assets as being currency right now. But, well, that's what I would have said 5 weeks ago. Now, the NFC is weak, guys. Like, I hate to, not to sound crappy, but they were talking to Jay Gruden today, and they went through the other teams in the AFC and who's the real challenger. I think you got Minnesota is real. NFC North is real. Detroit's real. Minnesota's real. Green Bay's real. But outside of that, NFC South, who are you afraid of? The Saints, the Falcons, maybe. But other than that, the Panthers and the who am I missing down there?
We did lose
Tampa.
to the Bucs, Derek.
Tampa. So there's 2 more in there. Anybody in the East? Obviously, we could have our own internal fight, but I think right now, if you look back, we are the best team in the division. And I don't think I'm being outlandish when I say that.
No, right now we are.
Right now we are.
And then NFC West has been
round into form. I don't think Dallas will. They've got injuries
I
on the
think
defense.
Philly might be tough as the season goes on.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Philly could round into form, but I think Dallas is who everybody thinks they are at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And New York's New York.
And then you look at the NFC West. Seattle has been they've been good, but they're not a juggernaut. San Fran is definitely not the juggernaut you expected them to be, mostly because of injuries.
Yeah, they're just decimated with injuries.
Arizona we've already beat. Okay, so let's be looking at the scope of the season now. When do we flip that switch of now? It's no longer about for the future, and can we really take advantage of a week in this of a weak NFC and maybe make some noise? And this isn't like when we won the division under 500. This team looks like it's got the ability to hang with pretty much anybody in the NFC.
So here's the question: if you go shopping 2 weeks from now, what do you go shopping for, Derek?
Probably
D tackle is what I'm thinking.
I don't know. I don't know. It depends on how Newton looks over the next 2 weeks. If I'm making my corner and wide receiver are probably my 2 top. Now that doesn't mean I'm going to spend stupid money, But if you could find a way into getting another wide receiver that as Mark put it, like a spark plug wide receiver, I'm not necessarily looking for what we've got, but somebody cut from the same cloth and I'm going to just use the names. Obviously, you're not going to get Tyreek Hill or Zay Flowers, but one of those guys, the guy that touches the ball who, that has a legitimate shot at house calls when he touches it.
Mm-hmm.
I would be interested in that. And then a corner would probably be my next thing that I would be really looking at.
So I went
just feel like with John Allen going down. And
I'm with you.
Especially if they're thinking not just this season, but
future. Yeah.
Him for a long-term contract coming off a major injury and his age, that could also be a possibility.
I went and looked at the free agent cornerbacks because I feel like cornerback is the fastest place we could upgrade. There's not a lot of guys that are going to be out of contract next year that bad teams might be willing to offload this year for a draft pick that Peters is willing to give up. But to stick with the wide receiver thing, and John is the guy that first floated this idea as far as I know. How do you feel about a second for T. Higgins? Because it's going to have to be at least a second to get T. Higgins away from Cincinnati.
As long as it's T. Higgins and you sign him to an extension.
Yeah.
Because then you start to get into the conversation of, is T. Higgins better than anything you can just take in the second round in 2024 in the 2025 draft, right? So that's where my internal battle would be. But yeah, if you can sign Higgins and get him onto a 3-year deal extension so that you have him 3 years beyond 24, I would definitely have to consider that because I think he instantly upgrades your offense, and he's now upgraded your offense while you've got McLaurin under contract. And now Jaden has his weapons. The other thing that we need to seriously start thinking about as a team, obviously not us idiots on Blind Pig, but the team needs to start thinking about is how many of these guys are we going to bring back? Eckler 1-year deal, Bobby Wagner 1-year deal, Allegretti 1-year deal, right? Biotish was a multi-year deal. I think Allegretti was a 1, but I'm not 100%. But how many of these other guys?
2. Biotish was 3.
Okay. How many of these other guys are we going to start having to think about? Like we've now seen it on the field. It's a 5-2 football team. When are we going to start making these guys offers?
What are the rules on that? Can we re-sign these guys during the season at this point?
I'm sure we can.
I feel like. I mean, didn't we give Cosme an extension like during right at the start of the season? So
but I feel like there's a cutoff in there somewhere, maybe.
Oh.
Anyways, we can revisit that because I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. But this is awesome. 5-2, and it's a different vibe.
5-2.
So, all right, boys. Well, we've now breached the hour again. It's a lot easier to do that when we're winning, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
People tend to listen a little bit longer. But as always, we'll sign off with the famous words of "That'll do, pigs." That'll do.
Night, guys.
Night.